this has an interesting name, actually. I just realized this as I was reading it. So the name of the next panel is Bringing Back Manufacturing to the U.S. through Hardtech Entrepreneurship. I only heard one laugh. This was not inspired by the Trump administration, as far as I know.
Here?
But it seems to fit right in,
Okay.
which I gather is purposeful from Fernando. So Charlotte and Sean, are you mic'd up? Okay, go right up there. All right, thanks. And Sean, go right up there.
I'll have it. Like having paper in front of me.
You're good, Sean, go right up there as well. So I will. Are we good? We good, Mike? I think we're good.
Audio test.
We're good on the mics. Everybody can hear us.
Mic work?
Great, okay.
Testing.
So I'm just gonna introduce Fernando. They might have to toggle the switch on your mics.
Yeah, it's on. We're good.
So Fernando is one of my primary colleagues at Cornell Tech. We do a lot of collaboration with Cornell Tech between our two campuses. Obviously, Cornell Tech is all about entrepreneurship, and it's just the perfect collaboration. So I will let Fernando take it from here, introduce his panelists.
Okay.
See, we'll try to make it as close as possible. They can do this. Okay, there we go.
Test.
Test.
Hey, everybody.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Take it away.
Thank you so much, Zach, and thank you everybody for being here. So we selected this topic because of the times that we live in. This is very topical, and I think that it's very important for us to start talking about manufacturing and hard tech, right? We know that software has hit in the world, and Cornell has played a fantastic role in bringing companies and building companies related to software. But we also want to talk about hard tech, manufacturing, chemicals, materials, energy storage, things that are hard, and we do that quite well. So hi, everybody. I'm Fernando Gómez-Baquero. I'm the director of the Runway and Spinouts program at Cornell Tech. I'm also the director of a brand new initiative from the National Science Foundation called the NSF Engine, particularly for energy storage in upstate New York. So I want to put you in a context of what is it that we're trying to talk about here. United States still is a powerhouse of manufacturing. A lot of the stories that we hear that we're not, that's actually not true. We are a powerhouse of manufacturing. We're still leading in a lot of sectors, aerospace, pharmaceuticals, new technology. But we definitely face some steep competition. And of course, China is one of those, but not only China. Germany, South Korea, Japan, big adversaries. We face a lot of competition on that side. The US government has responded. In the last 4 years, we saw great programs that brought in a lot of money, federal government money, to manufacturing. CHIPS Act, which probably you've heard about. We've heard about the Jobs Act, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'll talk about the NSF Energy's Upstate New York Energy Storage project, which is, again, NSF money. New York State also received EDA money, Department of Commerce, with tech hubs and Build Back Better. So there's a lot of really interesting programs that are bringing money to manufacturing. They have not stopped, so that's a good thing, right? But when we talk about entrepreneurship, there is an imbalance. I was looking at some numbers, and about 10% of all venture capital money that goes in the US, only 10% goes to hard tech and manufacturing. It's not zero, which we might think it is, but it's 10%. So that's very low. Definitely software is winning that race. So with that in context, I want to introduce, or want to let the panelists here introduce themselves, and then we're going to start a really interesting conversation about how can we get all of that hard tech manufacturing back into the US, and how can we motivate more of that type of manufacturing here in the US. So I would love for you to introduce yourself. Charlotte, maybe you first.
Yeah, sure. Is my mic working close enough?
Yes,
All right.
it is. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. I'm Charlotte Hamilton. I'm a 1995 grad from Natural Resources at CALS, and I'm a 2004 grad from the MBA program across the street. I'm an entrepreneur working specifically on hard tech, material science, and chemistry. I've founded or led 5 different companies, most of them based here on Cornell technology. I currently live in Syracuse. I'm running a company called TAF Carbon. We make fire-resistant, lightweight carbon material for building insulation and other applications. We make it from lignin, which is the technology is licensed from the USDA in that case. Although I'm interested in new Cornell tech, I see Martin over there and others. So maybe we can add some Cornell tech to the project, but I'm happy to be here.
There we go. We have some good deals happening, right? Right in
We'll
front
see
of
if we
you.
can do a
That's,
deal. Hey.
that's
nice to see
amazing.
ya.
We lose no opportunity to make good deals. Sean?
Yeah, I'm Sean. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of REEgen. REEgen's technology spun out of Cornell, my PhD lab specifically. And we have engineered bacteria to help us to extract and purify rare earth elements, mostly focused on recycled and waste sources.
Thank you. So let's start with you, Charlotte, because you have a lot of experience, even way in the past with a little company called Novomer,
Yeah.
which would bring a lot of memories to people here.
Yeah.
So what is different about doing a startup in this type of hard tech at that point in time when
Yeah.
Novomer was growing and nowadays?
Yeah, so he's mentioning Novomer, which I ran from 2006 to 2009. I was the second employee. I wasn't a founder, although I did the reincorporation from an LLC to a C Corp. So maybe I'm a founder, but I'm not really. Yeah, it was really interesting raising money for a clean tech company during that period. It was a very hype-driven period called Clean Tech 1.0, which is actually a bad word in the venture community. The venture community was looking at clean tech as, okay, this is going to be just as easy as new software for routers, and throwing money at it. I ended up having competing term sheets on an A round, and closed that round right before the financial crisis of 2008. So a lot of luck involved in finding my way to Novomer, finding my way to that round. But it was hype driven. So, we were making CO2 polymers, and we had some very famous, very super smart people involved in the company, and a new CEO in that case could raise money. That's very different than now. So it's called Clean Tech 1.0 because it crashed. Almost no companies that were invested during this phase actually made any money. So this may be apocryphal, but I've heard it's the only Kleiner fund that lost money. I don't know if that's true or not, but a lot of money was lost. And so in starting a battery company in 2013, and then now a construction materials company in 2021, it's a vastly different environment.
And so I want to thread a little bit on that because you mentioned it was very hype driven before, right, with venture capital investment. So what is the pitch right now for climate tech, if there is any, right? So
Yeah.
is it more driven about profitability, about certain types of economics? What would be the pitch now?
Hey,
Well,
Charlotte and Sean,
Yeah.
can you do me a favor, move like 2 feet to your right, because Sean's face is right in the QR code, and it just looks a little funny, and I don't want,
Sorry
there we
about
go. We want everyone to be able to see him.
page management.
There we
Is
go.
that
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
so
was the
the question was on, before it was climate tech, it was hype driven, right? So what is the angle nowadays? You're trying to do a hard tech startup company. Is it
Yeah.
about profitability? What is the case that you would make with a venture
Yeah.
capital?
So it's very much the same case. And so I work on a kind of a triangle of value proposition where it's got 3 parts to it. What's the price of the material? What's the performance of the material? And that really drives the conversation. What's the price and performance? And that's the base of this triangle. The green aspect of it is the top. It's a nice to have.
Mhm.
It's nice to be able to talk about that, but it doesn't drive, in my experience, investment dollars. I may be a little late to that game, meaning I think you could raise money on a more environmental pitch now, but I'm kind of shell-shocked from all of the fallout from the story I just told. So I talk about it and I do green companies, but that carbon credits, recycling, they get you in the door, but they don't close the money.
That's a great point, right? That with this type of hard tech manufacturing, the hype is difficult. And I think I agree with you that price performance tend to be kind of the main things that we talk about when we're on this market. So Sean, for you, how do you see this time for you? This is a new endeavor for you, so REEgen hasn't been around for that long. Is it a good time for this type of deep tech and for what you're doing?
I think that it's kind of mixed because on one hand, you have post-COVID, there's been a lot more focus on manufacturing and supply chains and making sure that you have things made in the US. And to some extent, we really do need to innovate. We really do need new technologies in order to compete and also to produce things that don't have the externalities that make it so that people don't want to mine in the US or don't want to produce critical minerals in the US. On the other hand, we're also in a very uncertain time right now. Like a lot of investors have been very skittish, particularly with things that are deep tech or biotech or especially climate tech. And that makes it very hard to raise money, which you kind of need to do in order to have a successful deep tech startup, because you're just not going to have a product for a while that you could sell. And it's also made more difficult by a lot of these are developed by universities, they spin out of universities, but if you no longer have that funding and that infrastructure at the universities, you're also not going to have these deep tech startups spinning out, or even the ones that currently exist. Like we still collaborate with university labs. Like if they don't have the support to succeed, that makes it harder for us to as well. So yeah, it's a mixed bag in terms of environment.
So you mentioned some interesting challenges, right? That I think that are there across the board. Access to great resources, right? Access to great talent. You need to be attached to a place that gives you that. What about funding? Is that a big challenge for you?
Yes, that is. We are currently in the middle of fundraising, and the biggest challenge is that investors are just very nervous about the environment. They don't know where the economy is going, and they want things that they feel like is more secure. And the AI boom also certainly doesn't help, because that's also soaked up a lot of the funding that people are willing to invest right now. I will say that being in the critical minerals space helps a little bit because people are very interested in that, but that hasn't totally offset a lot of the nervousness that investors have had, not just this year, although it's gotten worse in recent months, but in the last couple of years about the environment.
Yeah, so it's still critical. And we know that in the US, there's a very healthy venture capital ecosystem. We know that there's a very healthy just ecosystem for finance in general. But how do we attract that ecosystem to actually come to us, right? And then Silicon Valley has been kind of the big player on that. But New York has progressed quite a lot. So maybe for you, Charlotte, can you comment on, you decided to build this in New York, and not just in New York, but in upstate New York, right? Which is a little bit crazy, but thank God for that. So how hard is it to do this in New York, or what did you decide to actually do this in New York?
Yeah, well, all my companies have been based here because I'm based here.
Okay.
I mean, it's a fantastic place to raise a family, and I had kids go through the Ithaca schools, and I still have one kid in the Ithaca schools. So, I mean, I didn't, pick this strategically out of all the places in the world I could build a hard tech company. But I think you have a tremendous access to technology. So it's just absolutely unparalleled. I mean, one of the licensing officers for Cornell's tech transfer office is here in the room, at least one. And Cornell spends $600 million a year. I think I might have the number slightly off now, but on research. And that same amount of research is going on in lots of other institutions collectively across New York. So you have access to technology, and access to funding is a global game. So the round I just closed, I met someone in Paris at a conference, and closed a significant investment into the company. So I've closed money from Chicago and San Francisco and Boston. It's just, you have to be on the road to make it work, and it's a little harder to be on the road from here, but it does work.
Yeah, no, but that's super interesting. Just because you're in New York and there's a good ecosystem doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out and try to find funders
Yeah.
and resources in other places.
You
right?
absolutely, there are great resources. You know a lot of them. I know a lot of them. There are a lot of them in the room of resources for investment for this translational piece that needs to happen between a university and a company. There are resources like that in New York. The resources beyond that to really build a global company, to build multiple factories, that happens on an international scale, not a New York scale.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, Sean, for you, where's another place in the world where it could be in the US or it could be outside of the US where you think it's strategic for your company to be or to find, people, resources, money?
I think that right now, we need to be in a place that does have access to a lot of resources, particularly for continuing our research and development efforts. I think that Europe is another good place because they're also focused on building a critical mineral supply chain. And because we're focused on a lot of recycled and end-of-life materials, there's a lot of availability in Europe as well. And we've certainly also began talking to some companies in the UK and in continental Europe that we might be able to use our technology to recover rare earths from.
Yeah, so this is going to be the year of supply chains, right? So there's a lot of talk about that and a lot of nervousness about that. But from that, I hope that it can bring some great opportunities for sure. So I do want to point out that Cornell has a great history of building great companies that are related to manufacturing. And not just that they do manufacturing here in the US, but do great products. I want to point out two companies from our Cornell Runway program in New York City. One is called Nanit, raised $75 million and has manufacturing and distribution worldwide, and even in China, part of it, but not exclusively in China. We have another company called Wesper. Wesper is a device to detect sleep apnea and came out of some work that founder did in Japan. So some of his production is in Japan and then coming here. We have examples. That company has raised now $30 million and is continuing to grow with great customer base. So we have great examples of that. And we'd love it if, Charlotte and Sean, maybe Charlotte first, you can tell us some examples that you think that are interesting, maybe
Sure.
Cornell, maybe not, right? And then kind of, good things that you liked about it, or maybe you can tell us also bad things, but, a good example that you think that it's
Sure.
interesting.
I'll shout out my friend Gabby's company, that's Ecoelectro, which
Yep.
is a Cornell technology spun out of the Coates lab. It's for anion exchange membranes. So really interesting, fantastic intellectual property developed by Cornell, licensed by Ecoelectro. They've gone through a number of kind of pivots about what type of thing they're going to make with this, but they're making electrolyzers now. They're expanding. They've raised quite a lot of money and a lot of really fantastic interest. And that's right here in Ithaca. The other fun one I like to talk, I'll mention is Embark, which is came through the life sciences incubator here. It's genetic testing of dogs. So they have one of the best logos in the world. So their logo looks exactly like one of the DNA base pairs, but also looks like a dog. So it's just, but they do genetic testing of dogs. They did raise some venture, but it's been much more revenue generated. And I just mentioned that because it is a hard tech, but it's also something that made it to market through revenue, through sales, and is just a really great product spun out of Cornell.
Yeah, so those are great examples, right? And yeah, Gabby is a great, great
Gabby's
person.
great.
Yeah,
Super
fantastic.
smart.
Yeah, so you see a lot of great funders coming here and using our ecosystem, and really not being afraid of going after these opportunities that seem really hard, but there are great business opportunities, right? So Sean, any examples that come to mind?
So I can't quite remember their actual names, but there's been a couple of fusion companies that I talked to that I admire because it's a lot of times when you're trying to raise money from investors, you really need to show, okay, this is my path to revenue. I'm going to get this by the next fundraising round. And it's very hard to get traction otherwise. But fusion is an area where it's inherently very, very difficult Like it's going to, there's going to be a very long time horizon. So I think that these companies have done a very good job of saying, okay, here are the technical milestones we need to meet to even have the potential in order to have this technology be successful in the future. And I think that's a very good model for a lot of deep tech startups, where it's just a very long time horizon to be reaching, but it doesn't quite make sense in a lot of cases for it just to have governmental money.
Yeah. So great examples. Also, I want to give a shout out to Alex Yu, who was supposed to be here as one of our panelists. He's another great example of a company that came out of here, Professor Bruña's lab. It was called Lio Nano back in the day, right? And then did a lot of great work, and now he's CEO, founder of Factorial. He couldn't be here. He was sick. We invited him, so we wish him speedy recovery.
Fernando, can I just mention two things?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think the geography is really important, and maybe for the students or entrepreneurs in the room. Alex's company, they were both Alex and the CEO. They were both partners in a technology development class right across the hall, right across the street at Sage Hall. And that was around, I forget, 2009, 2010.
Around that time, yeah,
Yeah.
10, yeah.
So I had met them at that time when I was coming off one of the companies, and then now they're one of the darlings of the battery space and working really well on that. And then Gabby and Christina Hugar's company that I mentioned, Ecoelectro. So Gabby and I met at this event, I want to say like 10 years ago. He was doing a poster about the technology, and Jeff Coates introduced him to me, and we talked. And so these things actually happen from rooms just like this. So there really are opportunities here.
Absolutely. And so if there's a student here that is looking for a job and wants to get into this hard-tech manufacturing, just go and mingle and talk to other people
absolutely.
here, because there's great technologies coming on board. Or go hit Martin Teschel, who's over there, who knows all of the great technologies that Cornell is licensing. So that's a great point. I want to maybe not shift, but since Zach mentioned it, really talk about the elephant in the room, which when we talk about manufacturing, usually is China, right? But China is what we talk about. We're in a trade war with China right now. It's interesting times to be alive. And I wanted to ask you, Sean, because rare earths, right? Immediately we think of China. This has been a topic for a long time. So why is it so important to compete in this space right now, even if it seems that it's, we are way behind?
So two reasons. One is supply chain. So if the supply ends up being cut off for whatever reason, it could be that that for whatever reason China wants to produce less rare earths. There could be some sort of natural disaster that cuts off a lot of the supply of rare earths within China. There could be new environmental regulations. Whatever the case, if they're not producing rare earths, then not only are we not getting rare earths, but the rest of the world also is going to need them. So if we want to make sure there's a continual supply of these, if we want to continue to be able to produce like smartphones and computers and electric cars and wind turbines, we're going to need to make sure that there's a supply. And that's not just about China, it's about it being so concentrated in a single country that if something happens in that country, then nobody in the world has it. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is one of the reasons why so much of the mining has been that the US used to do more mining, but a lot of that is now done in China and other parts of the world, is because we didn't want any of the environmental risks that come with it. Like we did not want this to be in our backyard. But the problem with that is that there's the assumption that it's not going to be affecting us if other countries are producing it and we're not, but you still have pollution, you still have greenhouse gas emissions, and you're unable to really meaningfully change that or innovate around that if you don't have a country that cares and really actively doesn't want that. So by bringing the mining back here, we're kind of taking ownership over that, and then that also has a potential to help other countries that have these mining operations to improve their environmental standards as well.
Yeah. So and I think that we tend to think of mining as a little bit of a bad word, but by having control of it, as you're saying, right, by understanding how it's done, and by innovating in this process, there's a lot of really interesting things that we can do. And Charlotte, I wonder also for you that this competition from China, right? There should be, but also probably Canada, Australia, right? So there's a lot of other countries that do hard carbon. So where's your competition coming from?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
super interesting, and we're working on a regional manufacturing plan. So we're developing manufacturing here in the US and in the EU. And then you'd have supply chain and manufacturing in each place, and then sales in each place. And the customer interest is there. The technology is advancing. I think we'll be in good shape for that. But in the interest of kind of deal making, I just love what you were saying. It reminds me of another company called Silvatex, which is run by a friend of mine. But Silvatex makes cathode active material, and if you make cathode active, you're competing against China directly, and cathode active material needs rare earth in various ways, right? Depending on which one you're making, but building up regional manufacturing, it makes more sense as you've got these huge tariffs. So what Silvatex is facing is, okay, well, they can manufacture in the US and they're going to need a supply chain potentially of rare earths. So if you can put the pieces together in each individual market, I think there is a good path to success.
Yeah, yeah. And what you're talking about is building ecosystems, right? And the importance of having an ecosystem. So it's not just about saying there's one particular technology, there's one particular company. It's about having an ecosystem that really helps sustain a lot of the efforts that are happening, but also connect a lot of these companies, which we think that they're competitive, but sometimes what they actually are is great partnership opportunities. And that happens a lot in the battery space. So I do want to give a shout out on that, which is a project where Cornell is heavily involved. It's called the NSF Energy Storage Engine in Upstate New York. And in this effort, we have NSF money, Department of Commerce money, ESD money. So there is poorly counted, probably about $200 million that are going to be committed to this effort of building an ecosystem of companies, an ecosystem of service providers and of universities as well. So Cornell is leading the translational side, but we work very closely with Binghamton University, Rochester Institute of Technology, and Syracuse University. So these type of ecosystems are absolutely something that we need to do. And if you want to learn more about that program, either contact me or Candice Reeves here, which is the program coordinator for that particular program. So Cornell is in the middle of that, right? It's in the middle of that, and it's playing an important role in how we build those ecosystems, as well as how we build the companies and the technologies in the future. So Charlotte, now you have a room here, a room full of students, probably online. We also have some people that are maybe looking for jobs, right? And
Sure.
in this economy. So what would you tell them to motivate them to go into hard tech, right? To go into these very intense hardware, chemicals manufacturing, materials manufacturing sectors?
I think if you want to make a difference, do it with molecules, do it with science. And that really does make a lasting difference in the world. So I can look back on my career, and I've advanced several unique technologies, new ways to put molecules together that improve the world. And I use business to do that because that's my training, but there's folks that use chemistry and material science to do that. But I sleep great at night knowing that I'm trying to make a difference in the world and putting a dent in the universe. So, try, and business is an engine to do that. And the thing is, the world is not as doom and gloom as you think it is. There are investors. My company is part of a company called Endeavor, which is an infrastructure company that's very actively investing in new technologies and new infrastructure. There are companies that do actively invest, and there are great teams out there trying to make a difference because the world needs materials. And the innovation that happens within like 1 mile of right here will make a huge difference. So you can catalyze that with your science or your business.
Yeah, so for everybody out there that are listening, you will sleep great at night,
You
right? So
will.
that is a
Yeah.
great reason why you should get into Hardtech, right? So like best sleep ever. So I love that. And Sean, what would you recommend too, for people that are looking to get jobs in this space? And as well, what have you seen here in our Cornell ecosystem that is really interesting and is very helpful?
So I think that if you want to get jobs in this space, it's very important to network. I know that a lot of the employees we've hired are people that we've encountered within the academic space, people that were part of internship programs, some of which were funded by like Cornell Ignite or by New Energy New York. So that's an important way to get access, or even people that just go and talk to me or talk to my co-founder Alexa. That helps establish this connection that it's sometimes a little harder. Like, if you put in a job application, if you put up a job on LinkedIn, you get 100 people. It's very hard to sift through them. But when you meet someone in person, that kind of cuts through things a lot. So that's something that I would recommend. Try and make one of those connections. What was the other part of your question?
And then great resources here in Cornell, right? And even in New York State that you think that our people should know about.
I think so. I was surprised when I came here that Cornell actually has a very good ecosystem for creating a startup, that there's particularly a deep tech startup. They have multiple incubators. They have the Praxis Center for Venture Development, which REEgen is a part of. They have the Center for Life Science Ventures, which we rented space from for a little bit, but that's another great resource for creating a startup. The Cornell Technology and Licensing was very helpful for making connections for doing the startup. They introduced us to the I-Corps program, which is something I'd recommend for anyone considering starting a business. I-Corps is essential for like finding your customers and then also for convincing people that you have found your customers, because even just saying that you did the I-Corps program gives you a lot of credibility. So I think those are some pretty good resources within our ecosystem.
And I have to point out, I didn't pay Sean to say that. It seems like a good advertisement for all of those Cornell programs, so I didn't pay that. But the reason why he's saying that and he's pointing those programs out is because those programs are really, really helpful. They've been working with entrepreneurs for a long time. They know how to do this. We have great people with I-Corps. Shannon, are you around here? There we go in the back. If any of the incubator directors, Linda at Ignite as well. So we all work as a team. There is really a very close-knit team of people that help entrepreneurs in this journey. And we've been at it ourselves too. We've been there. We lead and mentor with a lot of empathy for how tough this is. But the reason why they tell you about that is because they work. And you're in a great position of using those resources, of being part of the community that has those resources. And trust me when I tell you, not everybody in the world has that. And they would kill to have those resources here. So take advantage of those, please, and connect with us as much as you can. Network, as Sean, you were saying. Now, let's take a look a little bit in the future. All right, so we are now 2025. The world seems to be crumbling. Maybe yes, maybe not as dire. But maybe let's take a look at 2050, right? What would be an ideal New York? Maybe what would be an ideal US too? But in terms of the role of manufacturing, the role of hard tech, the role of the material science, what would you like to see? So maybe, what is kind of your ideal? So maybe Sean, you first, what would you like to see 2050?
I think, how do I see, what do I want the future to look like?
Yeah, what do you want the future to look like?
I think what I would want to see is a better utilization of the waste that we produce, so that instead of things just sitting in landfills, that we manage to recycle most, if not all, of the metals and the other resources that are being produced there, so that, because like ultimately, like every, fossil fuels, minerals, all of these are finite resources in the end, if you're getting them, when you're getting them out of the ground. So if we don't start reusing them and seriously reusing them at some point, we're going to be in trouble. And I think if we don't have this by 2050, we're going to be in serious trouble.
I love that vision of the world, right? So in 2050, we are a lot more aware of how we're using, and then we're very committed to reusing, right? And to be able to use our natural resources a lot better. Charlotte, what about you? What's your ideal 2050?
Yeah, I would say in a hopeful way that new technology will be part of daily lives in terms of this molecular change that I was talking about. Changes that were developed here at Cornell in 2004 became global products in 2021. Things take a long time, but developments that are here now will be part of the world. I am a technological optimist. I think the world will be better due to material science, due to science across the board in 2050. My own company, Taft Carbon, we have a vision of better materials everywhere. So we make low-cost, high-performance materials out of carbon, out of waste products. And, you know, we want fireproof insulation. We want structural carbon in replacing steel in various applications. We see a path to doing that, and we have the resources to do it and a very aggressive vision. But that's a huge change. If you can get a new material into the world at a global scale, it makes a huge difference. And I'm not the only person working on it. You know, there's lots and lots of people here in this room sitting right next to me who are working on making massive differences in the world. And I think it will happen.
Yeah. So my thought on this is I would love to see in 2050 that we continue to be committed to science as a driver of improving people's lives. I think sometimes we think software would do the trick, and this is where we put all of the money. But in reality, there's a lot of science that can create wealth, can create wellness, can create a great life for everybody, and can help us sleep better at night, as you were saying, right? So the good thing is that every single day here at Cornell University, I see the people that are going to make that change. And that is a wonderful thing about having this job, being able to work with you, being able to mentor you, being able to guide you, and being able to play a little bit of a role on that journey. It is a privilege for all of us here at Cornell that work on this to play a little bit a part of that journey and helping you out. So with that, I want to thank our speakers and definitely give open space for any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte, Sean, Fernando, thank you guys for your talk. I work for Eco Electros, so Gabby, I'm
Great.
sure, is blushing somewhere. If anyone talks about green hydrogen, I'm here. That's my sales pitch. So you guys were talking about kind of the 10% of venture going into Hardtech. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think like the 7 to 10 year return profile for venture doesn't really fit deep tech. You said like 04 to 2021, a long time. So I feel like that's kind of forced deep tech to get into a more sophisticated climate or capital stack. So like debt, grant, venture debt. You guys want to talk about kind of your experience navigating that side of the capital raise versus just venture?
Yeah, if you want to get started, Charlotte, yeah.
Yeah, it's you're exactly right. The hard tech takes longer than traditional venture, and meaning software and things. So you have to have a multifaceted approach. So I always followed a chasing very large government grant opportunities. So we started a strategy at Novomer led to a $30 million DOE contract. My last company, Conomics, had an $8.6 million contract with IARPA. I know Eco Electro has been very successful in this. So that type of funding, if you're chasing it at a big level, makes sense. I think if you're chasing it at the $100,000 level, that's not, it doesn't correspond to the high growth types of businesses that I run. It doesn't mean it's not a strategy for other businesses. I think the venture model is changing. So venture as a capital sector is facing challenging returns across a lot of venture capitalists. Investors, LPs that invest in venture are realizing this as well, that venture is not giving them the financial returns, and a lot of those LPs are there for reasons beyond financial returns. So there are other methods, and like I just closed a significant investment into my company from a strategic. So the strategic is interested in building big, huge companies that make a difference in the world. And that's what Endeavor does with its infrastructure investments. So they're not interested in flipping the company, they're interested in building a company. So there are other methods of investment, and it's a really tough world because entrepreneurship focuses on the venture story. There are shows like Shark Tank that I would never watch, by the way. But
I'm not the only one, actually,
yeah,
so
no,
thank
I
you for that.
freaking hate that show.
Yeah.
But because that's really not the way the world works, first off. And and I also don't want to watch something that I kind of do for a living. So but the world works in a different way. There are lots of people with money. There are very few people with good ideas that can translate those ideas into successful businesses. The trick is finding the people with the money. There are people with money that dwarfs some of the venture funds that are applying that money for this longer term bet. It just takes time to find that. And you've got to have, then you get to like an entrepreneurial spirit conversation, and that's a different question.
Yeah. Sean, do you have any comments on this?
So we're still fairly early stage, and so far we've mostly been raising safe notes, and we've been pursuing government grants. And the way that we've dealt with the long time horizon is pretty much just trying to shorten the time horizon. That we've looked for other opportunities. We've done some paid work for mining companies to test our process on their material, and that's one way we're generating revenue. And we've also found an intermediate product that we could make so that we could scale up, at least part of our process earlier, so that we have some of this revenue, and then it makes it a little more appealing to venture capitalist firms. So we've kind of we're going more the traditional route and just changing our business kind of around this traditional route.
Yeah, so I want to add to that and basically double clicking on what both Charlotte and Sean said. First off, yes, Shark Tank is a horrible show. It's not the reality on how you would do a due diligence at all, right? So I think just sets the wrong expectation. But one thing that I think is clear to understand in the venture capital world is that there is professional thesis-driven long-term venture, and then there's money that thinks is venture. And there's two very different things, right? So there's a lot of people with money that say, oh, because I have money, I could be a venture capitalist. And these are the people that create funds that don't have a thesis, don't have a structure, don't understand the timeframes of this type of investment. And then you get into the wrong cycles with those, with that type of money, right? So what we need, and in the US, we need more professional thesis-driven venture capital funds. So people like, it could be corporate or strategic investors where they know why they're investing. They know that it's not a one-year return. They know that it's a long-term. They know that it has to do with their business model. And I do see more of a comeback to that. Let's build these venture capital models, which are thesis-driven. Very few of them are. And you have to look for those if you're looking for Hardtech. But Sean also mentioned something that I think is very important, and it's revenue, right? So nowadays, revenue is really important. Investors were always going to play the role of, okay, I can put money, but the government can also put money, right? So can I get subsidized for that? Sometimes that's a little bit of a disincentive if the government puts money. But I think what's an incentive for everybody is someone that pays for it and pays for it well. And if it's the government that is going to pay for it, whether it's the Air Force or maybe some DOD or DOE or some other project, that's a customer, right? If it's a good customer, or if it's the private sector that pays for it, that's also good. So we need to pay to good. We need to, again, get to these good paying customers. And I think that helps everybody. What's a project that you do where you have a good, strong customer, not just a demonstration project, because demonstration projects sometimes are not paid customers, right? So a good paying customer. And if you have a thesis-driven investor and good paying customers, I think that then we can get more of these projects funded. Great question. Over there.
Hello, Charlotte and Sean. Thank you very much for your thoughts. They were very insightful. I'm a chemical engineer myself, and I'm studying engineering management at the College of Engineering right now. And personally, I want to go into manufacturing and sort of be an entrepreneur in that space one day. So if you had one piece of advice that you could give to a young entrepreneur, what would that be?
Yeah, I would double down what I said before, that making these connections is very important for getting started. Participating in some of these programs, like I-Core or some of the certificates that Cornell offers, really does help with doing that. And I'd also say don't be afraid to go up to entrepreneurs that you meet that are either panelists or speakers, or whatever the situation, and just start a conversation, because a lot of times they could point you to resources, and a lot of times people are also very willing to talk.
Yeah, and I'd say, be very selective about what it is you decide to work on, because entrepreneurs are very, very rare. People that are really going to understand technology and move something forward, that's not a common combination. And that's why I kind of hate the venture world and this idea that the venture capitalists are these gatekeepers. In my mind, it's the entrepreneurs that are the true movers of technology, people who are going to move something forward. If that's you, you need to be very selective about what it is you decide to work on. Don't work on the very first thing that you find that could be a company, unless after you write down like 5 things that you think a company needs to have for you to work on it. Write down what those 5 things are. You're an engineer, make a spreadsheet, put in this first idea I have. Does it have great people? Does it have a great market? Does it have good intellectual property? Whatever, is it working in a field that you care about? Like put down and just rate it like 1 to 10, like literally put a number there, and then do that for 10 more things. Because if you walk around whatever engineering building you're in, you're going to find at least 10 ideas on posters. So find those 10 other ideas, put them in your spreadsheet, pick the one that's the best opportunity. Don't pick the very first thing. You can take a class on tech commercialization at the Johnson School and learn about my first thing, which was a complete failure. And we teach that class every year, but we just picked the first thing that we heard about and ran with it, and it was a horrible idea. And that's the thing, is the unique part of this is you. So be selective about what you choose to work on.
I think what Charlotte is saying, engineer the heck out of it.
Yeah.
Basically the whole
Yeah.
idea. Spreadsheet it out and then just go and put a whole bunch of stuff there. Love that idea. That's fantastic.
If you come back to the first one is the best one, then great. You can move forward with confidence. Right?
Absolutely. And then the last one that I will tell you is fall in love with a problem and not with a product. And look, if you find a problem that is big enough, is tough enough, is large enough, you'll go through these cycles. You'll go through different things where you can solve it in different ways, different approach, different value, maybe different parts of the value chain where you can play a role. And then you'll realize that it is worth doing, and there's always that north that guides you, which is this big problem. But if you fall in love with just the product itself, then it's a little bit like a lottery. Maybe it can work out, and maybe it works out well, but if it doesn't, it'll be very frustrating because you won't understand why. But what I tell most of my entrepreneurs and postdocs that are around me is always ask people for what are their problems. They'll tell you, right? That's a beautiful thing. They'll tell you what their problems are. And then you can go and really focus on how do you help this person solve that problem. And it's going to be a lifetime of finding really interesting things on how to solve problems. Fantastic. So
Thank you. so
Thank you, everybody.